Yo, welcome everybody to the All in Our Heads podcast with me, Joe Fernandes, and our guest co-host filling in for Mike Gaffney while he's still out at sea. Ahoy, matey. Give it up, everyone, for Joe Conte.
Hello.
Yes, Joe Conte from the Honeymooners Podcast.
Yes. I am all about the podcast about shows that have been off the air for 65 years now.
Well, it's still a very popular show, though. You must be getting a lot of
Absolutely.
listeners.
There's a lot of lunatics out there that really enjoy the show and are massive fans of that show. Where we call them DEFCON 3s. They know every single line of every single episode.
That's still one of in my top 5 favorite shows of all time. The Honey. It's been consistent. I saw it probably for the first time as a young kid with my grandparents. And I'm 47 now, and it still consistently makes me laugh. Like no other show. Maybe the only other show that makes me laugh like that on rewatch is Cheers.
I binged Cheers like 2 months ago and just went through the whole thing. I think I still have like 10 episodes left from the last season. I just went on Hulu and I was like, just wanted to just binge it. And the show, I don't know. To me, Cheers is perfectly rated. It's not overrated and it's not underrated. I don't know if it's always in top 5 when you talk about sitcoms, but it should be.
It's in my top 5.
It's absolutely in my top 5.
But that's a good thing. It's perfectly rated. It's not overrated. It's not underrated. You never hear somebody say, I don't like Cheers. The only thing, and people say they don't like the Kirstie Alley years. I thought she was hilarious in that. I
used to think that, right?
Yeah.
Said, you know what? The show jumped the shark when Shelley Long left. And when I rewatched it, and you're binging it, and I was watching like 2 episodes a day, I realized it was the perfect time for Shelley Long to go. Because that relationship with her and Sam, it was over. And I was in that same boat, but now when I watch it, I go, Kirstie Alley, it was great because she wasn't, Diane. She wasn't a replacement for Diane. She was different. And, it's great. I was wrong, and I am in that boat also.
And it was perfect because it was someone, who Sam just couldn't get. Sam couldn't get until later on in the episodes. It was like this hot, powerful woman, and none of his charms worked on her. She was just...
Exactly. And what's crazy is that she's so, like, almost like a weak person in a sense where she's so fragile. But when it came to Sam, she was hard as nails, and she didn't take Sam's crap. So it was like almost like a dichotomy there. She was just a soft person, like mentally ill, like just at any moment would just start crying, but never took any of Sam's crap.
Dude, I still have Cheers lines just come in my head when people say certain things. It's like if I hear the country Albania in anything.
Albania.
You order on the Adriatic. It's insane. And what's weird is like, say you're around someone and that comes up and they never saw Cheers. They're like, and you just even mumble that. They're like, you are a lunatic, man. What are you singing? What song are you singing? An Albania song? I'm like, it's a long story. Cheers, the coach. They were taking a night class. Never mind. You just gotta watch it.
Even the fact that when they lost coach, when Nick Colasanto died, and they replaced him, they replaced him with Woody Harrelson, and again, like a major character leaves, and unfortunately he passed away, and they had somebody replace, and it worked. Just did.
It did. Woody Harrelson, perfect. I mean, they cast that show perfectly. Like, you do the Honeymooners podcast where you talk about that show and all the parts of it. You break it down. And I've seen people do like Seinfeld podcasts where they watch I'm like, I wonder if anyone did the Cheers one out there. I wonder if anybody, because Cheers is something like if you wanted to do like a long form podcast that will last you a few years.
Easily.
You could just watch episodes and just break them down week to week with someone. I bet At first, that could be an idea for just a fun podcast to do on the side if no one's done it. I don't want to do a special because you're the only Honeymooners podcast I ever heard of.
Yeah, there's only like a trivia podcast where they just ask questions.
Yeah.
And, but that's it. There is no other. I don't think anybody else was insane enough to want to do it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm insane enough to bring up something from the 90s, see if anyone's interested. But the kids today, 90s is retro. 90s is like my parents' 60s.
That's exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean? Kids are like wearing Nirvana shirts like we wore Zeppelin shirts.
Yeah. If you listen to like CBS 101.1, it was like the oldie station when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Well, now the oldie songs are from the late 80s.
Yeah.
That's oldies.
I probably get in trouble though because Cheers is a pretty problematic show for today's society.
They really did get into some, I noticed it too when I was binging it. Like, wow, they got into some heavy stuff and still made it hilarious. They never had any special, a special episode where it was serious. They just took kind of a taboo topic and just made an episode about it, and it was just fantastic.
I mean, that would even be good to break down, like what happened in Cheers that you couldn't do today on TV. I mean, you would never have a Sam Malone character on TV today. A guy owning a bar who's a recovering alcoholic owning a bar, which
who's a womanizer,
a huge womanizer, right there, right off the bat. They would never let a character come in and out with women like that, 3 or 4 on the arm, seducing women every show.
Yeah, and them being called babes or bimbos or whatever the terminology they were using for whichever episode. But they did a bunch of episodes about being gay.
Yeah,
and it would be like Sam be like it would be like, oh well, not that but no, not me. No, like if somebody was construed as being gay, it was a big problem.
Well, that's about as far as they did as like doing like a special episode without saying it. It was like when Sam's friend, the pitcher, what was he, the guy from the Red Sox, turned out to be gay. Right. They were trying to show that gay is okay.
Yes,
but not like a very special episode.
No, they never did that. Where it was a series, they just threw in that topic and still made it funny without it getting sappy. It just had a little moment where he went from he was my best friend. He finds out he was gay, and now he's like, well, we weren't that close. And then it comes back to
right.
Yeah, what?
That was the time then. That's how people actually felt. But what was pretty cutting edge about that is that typically in films and movies, when they introduced a gay character, it was a very flamboyantly gay guy. This was a macho athlete, not acting gay, not talking gay, just gay, which you never saw that. I think if you think about it, that's probably the first time they did that because, I grew up knowing some gay people, but they weren't always flaming gay. They were like regular dudes.
Right.
Like I knew like a few regular dudes, and you were just like, they never portrayed that on TV.
I think once when Rock Hudson had AIDS and then died because he was the man's man, that was like, there was no, people on the inside knew, but nobody knew that. So it was like, hey, you know what? You can be a man's man, a masculine guy, and still be gay.
That's a great gay man name, though. Rock Hudson. I mean, come on. That is like if you're gonna if I like had to pick, if I had to become gay for some reason and had to pick a new gay name, Rock Hudson. You just feel.
Yeah, like, I would feel so masculine in my gayness.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, I would be like, yeah, whatever, and I wouldn't even. It wouldn't even bother me, and I would just go to anybody and be like, "How you doing? I'm gay." Yeah, by the way, my name's Rock Hudson.
Yeah, we'd straight bash. We'd just be.
Yeah, we make fun of straight people. What's up there, breeders?
Yeah.
What are you going to have some kids?
Yeah. Oh my God! Yeah, I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna search out Cheers podcast. If not, because I knew there was some people that did 21 Jump Street during the pandemic. They just watched 21 Jump Street again and did a pod because it was like the pandemic was so boring. They just
Right.
picked that series. So it's not
Did
a
they
bad
do
idea.
it like mystery science theater, that kind of thing?
I think they all watched it like they just started from episode 1, and then the following week they would talk about that episode, and then just 2, 3. I don't know if they made it through because I didn't like 21 Jump Street enough to follow along. I just saw that they, like YouTube, like comes up like in your algorithm, like if you watch podcasts, they'll just feed you podcasts.
Yeah,
So I saw 21 Jump Street. I was like, interesting. But that show's corny. But it was probably a funny podcast because that show's corny as shit when you watch. Like, it doesn't hold up.
I don't think it holds up. No,
These like 32-year-old men acting like high school teenagers.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny when that show was out. We were teenagers, and my mother used to always say that my brother reminded her of Johnny Depp, and I reminded her of Peter DeLuise. I was like, thanks, Mom. That was her way of just saying, yeah, you're the chubby one, and he's the cute one,
Oh, God. Yeah, Ma, you could have just,
Yeah, you could have just let that go.
You could have just let that go.
Yeah, I'm 17. I'm insecure enough. Thanks.
That's how they were back then, now.
Oh, yeah.
They're just passive-aggressive as hell. I went when my father. No, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna. I was about to say something but it'll hurt someone's feelings. So I'm just gonna. I'm gonna go on. Yeah, yeah. I was about to make fun of someone in my family, but
Okay.
Thanksgiving's coming, and I don't need phone calls.
Yeah. Before and after.
Yeah, before and after. Yeah. It's so funny, like early podcasting days, you just like forget that people could possibly listen. You just say anything, like just ripping on people.
Nobody was listening.
I remember my dad called me one time. Now, my dad, the fact that he listened to my podcast is a miracle. The guy was nuts.
Yeah, I know. I knew your pop.
The dude's died 7 years ago with a flip phone. Like, he never had a smartphone. He didn't have a computer, so I can only assume he asked my mom to play the podcast for him. Like, we bought him a Kindle one year for Christmas. Once it lost its first charge, it never got read again. But, like, yeah, he called me because we were talking. I was talking about, like, hunting on the podcast and how, like, I enjoyed it when I was a kid, but I didn't love it like my brother and my dad. But I still would go every year with my dad for the one buck week. Not so much because I loved hunting, because I loved to be with my dad and my brother for a week of just hanging with the guys, And my dad called me. He's like, "Well, if you don't like hunting, man, why if you didn't like it, you could have just told me. You don't have to do it if you don't." I'm like he made it like a negative. Like after he heard my podcast, he's like, "You don't have to do this just for me." I'm like, "No, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it to be with you."
Right. You're not just just torturing yourself. You're hanging out with your pop.
No, how else am I going to hang out for one full week with my brother and my dad with none of the other family around?
Right.
It's just you either got to go hunting or fishing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But it was just so funny how people could just listen and take things, and you're just like talking regular, and they're like, "Fuck."
Because you forget because you're doing like a podcast, or when I started, we were doing internet radio, and you're like, there's nobody listening, and then you find out, oh yeah, there's a couple of people.
I was just recently telling someone, where was that studio when you had your first show?
Nyack.
That was in Nyack. Was that Conte and Kenny's show? What was that?
Yeah. We did like 4 episodes, and we called it the Bag of Nuts thing because it was me and Kyle.
Right, it was Bag of Nuts. I think I went up like one of your first or second episodes. I went up with you guys. I drove up. I think it was either the first or second, and it was back in the days when you couldn't even record them. Like if you didn't listen that night, it was over.
No, they were able to. They could capture it, and then you'd have to have it on the website because the word podcast hadn't been invented yet. This was 2005, so it's just internet radio, and you could go on the website, and then it could be past episodes. You would just click on it. You had to do it from your computer, and that was the only way to listen. And but yeah, then Kyle ended up being a heroin addict, and he didn't show. And Kyle was Kenny started filling in, and then we started doing the Conte and Kenny thing.
Yeah, who's said to have created podcasting, like the father of podcasting? Adam Curry, that old MTV VJ.
Really?
Yeah, he was like the first one to podcast, to host audio on a thing for people to download. He was the first one.
Really?
Yeah, he's like the grandfather of podcasting.
I heard he like has a very popular podcast and he's been doing it forever, but I didn't know he was like one of those first guys to kind of really and let's face it, there were probably people that did it, but he was probably the first person with any type of notoriety that did it, and then it became popular.
Yeah, I think there was like no way he could like, I guess, like copyright or have the rights to like podcasting, like the act of download. I don't know.
I guess not, because it's not what is that? Intellectual property. It's not what you're saying or how you're saying it. It's just your vehicle of putting it out there.
Yeah,
So
it's either he couldn't get it or he got it and didn't. I think he wanted it to be a thing. He didn't want to be like making, he liked the freedom of it. You should go. There's a lot of interviews with him on it. It's very interesting. I never knew that until probably about 6 months ago.
Oh wow, I'm gonna check him out on YouTube. I like to see the interview, listen to how that all kind of came about.
Yeah, if I find it, I'll send it to you. But yeah, because I was telling someone you were the first podcaster, quote unquote, internet radio that I knew back then. It was like what, 04?
2005 was the first time we did it, and because we went up with Otto to go do Craig Zafola's internet show called Movies on Plastic, and they would just do just review movies. So I went there and I'm sitting in the studio with Otto and Johnny O, and they're doing a thing, and I'm like, oh my God, they're doing radio, but it's on the internet. And I've always wanted to do radio. Me and my friend, when we were 10, we did a fake pretend radio show, and we recorded it. We called the station WIOU. It was so corny and stupid, and we did these bits, and we did song parodies. So there was an opportunity to do it, and it was so exciting, Meanwhile, you just thought, oh, I'm just going to go on there and people are going to hear it. And of course, you got to get people to check you out, especially back then. But it was interesting. Like, wow, and it gave you the freedom to be able to do it. Because before that, you could only be hired by a radio station. That's it.
Yeah, you were the only, because back then it was like, I was an open micer. I just started comedy. And I used to listen to your show because it was the only comedy thing to listen to between open mic nights. You know what I mean? Like when you're home, there was no podcasting. There was no YouTube. I mean, yeah. I think there was YouTube, but it wasn't like, it didn't have podcasts. Well,
it's right. We did that right around the same time YouTube came out. It happened to be 2005. That's when YouTube first started. But in the beginning, the only thing I remember about YouTube was like Lonely Girl 14. It was some chick who was like pretending to, you found out it was all baloney. She was like pretending to be like very lonely, and people would like comment on her thing. And I think they sent her money or something. But that's the first thing I remember about YouTube. You didn't think, well, I'm going to go on YouTube and watch an episode of All in the Family. You just heard people were going to go on there and record themselves.
Yeah, it was as a aspiring filmmaker back then. It was finally a place where I can put it to show people. Because when I used to make short films, I used to show it to like 6 friends, my family, and then that was it. It's like there was nowhere else to go. They're like, dude, this is great.
Put your shoes on and get out.
Like, this is great. You should show it to people. I'm like, cool. You know where people are?
I just did.
I just did show it to people. I don't know. I can't find an address in Hollywood that would want this piece of shit. But I remember, putting it on YouTube, and it was like 100 views. You're like, 100 people saw my thing?
It's crazy. Like, oh my God, 100 people.
And 16 years later, I still am only getting 100 views. So there we go. And
because we look at it like as comics, like, hey, a room with 100 people is great. That's a great show.
Oh, yeah.
So 100 people watched it, but we don't realize, it was one person here, and then 4 days later, one person. And
then my mom 50 times. And then,
50.
Look at Joey. I got to see it again. But do you have downloads of those first shows? Do you have like the MP3s?
I don't think so. The guy, because when we left there and we went to the studio in Clifton in 2009 and Non-Productive for Frank, I think he might have them somewhere, and I always said we should find them. But we made 2 CDs. That's what we did. We took the best clips we could find, and then we made 2 CDs. And we made Conte and Kenny best of. And we put like 14 clips. You're on like a couple of
I remember that, dude. I need those. I need a copy of those. I want to hear them. I really do. I love the old shit, dude. During the pandemic, when I came upon your roast that I had all the raw footage of, and that I put together, dude, that was classic, dude. Like, we are all like awful open micers.
Yeah, it was like all us awful open micers, and then Bob Levy and Otto. You know, like two pros.
Dude, meeting Bob Levy, when you're an open, back then in the early 2000s, getting to work with Otto and Bob Levy as an open micer, that it was about as close to meeting like George Carlin from like his
celebrities.
Because you didn't, it was like because I heard him on Howard Stern. I'm like, these guys are on Howard Stern, have asked me to come open for them. It was like, like, I was like, dude, I am on my way, dude. I mean, I'm definitely going to be rich easy by next month, if not 3 months.
You thought the same thing, like, oh my God, I'm going to be a star. That's all I needed was my one break.
Yeah, I mean, I got a good 5 minutes. If I get another 10 minutes, I'm killing it. I remember the first time Bob Levy, it was one of the times he had that Levy's Comedy Club in Levittown.
Oh, yeah, out in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
right?
It was like the big backdrop with his big dumb head. And
it was life-size, actually.
But this is when he was on Stern and like big. Like, so he had a show. He put me and Gino Bisconti on it. He was hosting. Then I went, and then Gino. So, I mean, we're talking sold out ballroom. I mean, I had never been in front of a crowd like that in my life. And Carrie came on the road with me for the first time. She would never come on the road. And then, so we're in the hotel after the show, in the hotel bar. They shut down the bar, and it becomes a party, and the waitress is like making out on tables. It turns like this big debaucherous thing. Carrie's like, is this what happens when you're on the road? I'm like, never. Of course, the day my girlfriend comes, there's this insane orgy happening. I'm like, normally it's me crying into a Domino's pizza saying, I can't believe I bombed again.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you basically did a rock show. It was like you did a rock show. It was like a rock and roll show.
I remember because I was so nervous. Like my left leg was like moving, like moving without like just nerves, like without me moving. My left leg was just dancing, and I'm up there and I do like whatever my 15 minutes,
right,
and get off. And I was like, it was almost like I was like outside of myself, watching myself.
Out of your body. Yes, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And then Kerry goes, oh, you were great. And I go, was my leg moving? She goes, what? I go, I felt like my leg was moving like crazy. She goes, no, I didn't notice. But dude, in my head, man, my left leg was doing the can. It was like just nerves, insane nerves.
Yeah. That's so, you know what it is, dude? It's all perception. The perception was different because we didn't see everything yet. We didn't know what this whole thing was about. So you're in like this tiny little room in your head, like, all right, I guess this is what comedy is. And it just seemed, everything seemed different back then.
Yeah.
And realistically, I mean, yeah, things are changed, with technology, but realistically, it's the same. But we just have a different perception of it now, and that's what makes it so interesting and cool.
Yeah,
that's what I love about it. Like you learn something every time you get on stage, or at least about comedy itself. Like this could happen or that could happen. And it's never exactly the same. And I think it's one of the reasons why we love to do it. Besides, having a fucked up childhood and stuff like that. Yeah. Sorry for the language.
But I look back on those days fondly. Like, don't get me wrong. I love doing it today because I know what I'm doing, and I'm pretty consistent weekend to week. You know what I mean? It's like I finally know what I'm doing up there. But back then, the I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen anymore. Like night to night, or like we used to all see each other like almost every night And like I heard somebody say something one time, and it rang true. It said nobody writes more than open micers.
It's true.
Remember, we used to just be there, just eating balls with shit every night.
Yeah, just pulling out a premise, and then be like, "Yeah, I don't have a punchline for that. I just wanted to hear how the premise sounded." I mean, it was but it was exciting. You know, that's the deal. Now we're at that point. We're halfway in between the point, because the way I look at comedy now, it's like comedy is part of my social life. Like I get to go and do something I love. I get paid sometimes, and it's kind of fun. And and there's still like there, but back then it was all about the excitement. It was like I just get to go and perform, and it was totally my social life. Like if I was at a show and we were hanging out, I didn't want to go home. Did you want to go home?
Nah, I never went. We used to close down diners.
Absolutely. Now I was never a big.
Now everyone's lame. They're like, yeah, I gotta get some sleep.
You're like, now we're like, where's your show, dude? It's amazing. Why? Is there a lot of people there? No, it's only 20 minutes from my house. That's the big deal now because we're older. We're like, I want to do a great show, and then I want to get the hell out of there before anybody even talks to me.
That's weird. I went on the road for the first time since 2019. Last weekend, went out to Hanover, PA, to this awesome club called Church of Satire. I was supposed to be there 2020, but for obvious reasons, so I took Mike Salona out with me, and it was cool being on the road with a buddy. If I can just eating and bullshitting, smoking cigars at the hotel, had 2 good shows, but it was like, now back in the day, you'd stay Saturday night and stay up late after the show. Saturday, we had the car packed. We're ready to rock. It's like, good night, everybody. And then right home. Let's go home. Yeah. 3.5 hours home.
There's no like echo. In other words, when the show was over, it used to be like this echo because you were like, you're hanging out. You talk about the show with the other comics, and it kind of keeps going. Now the show's over, they leave, and you're like, done. I'm out of here. Like there's no echo or there's no recourse. It's just show's over. I want to go home. But you're still enjoying when we're on stage. It's just not as it's not as social as it was. And plus, let's face it, we're not all meeting up. Remember Woodbridge? We used to all go to Woodbridge and meet up after the show at Woodbridge at James at the hotel.
Yeah, I missed that shit.
It was great because everybody was working somewhere doing a show, and then everybody would just come there and hang out because the show didn't start till like 10 o'clock. So it was perfect. By the time the show was over, people would come there and it was just a hang, and then we'd all go to a diner and hang out and have some laughs. Now, you want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home to my dog. You want to go home to your dog, and maybe our wives too. But it's like that's what you want to do now.
Now, I like comedy. I don't like leaving to go do comedy. That's always the hardest part. It's like I'm sitting there like hanging with my dog, watching TV, and then it's like, we gotta go.
Yeah, it's weird because it's almost like, I don't want to say it's like a job. I'm not trying to make it like that, but now it feels more work-ish because you have other things you want to accomplish. Where back then you were like, I just want to get on stage and get better. Now it's like you want to accomplish more. You want to get better, but you have other things you're trying to do within it to get better and to be stronger and be more aggressive when it comes to trying to get more gigs, because now the type of gigs are important. You don't want to just go to some horrible room on a Tuesday, which I'll be doing tomorrow. It's like we want to do good rooms and good shows because we don't want to waste our time because, like you said, I'd rather be home than go do some horrible mic.
Yeah, I'm doing some room on a Tuesday that I messaged you about. I'm like, is this a good room? Is it worth it? You're like, yeah, it's not bad. So I don't know what that not bad means.
It was good.
Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Well, I said I'll go out if I can bring a friend. So I made it like a night to hang. So I'm bringing Salona with me. So
okay.
We'll see it's a Tuesday. I need to work on the act. 2020 was a long time of not doing comedy, so I need stage time. But you got to do Bergen Pack this week, huh?
Yeah, Saturday night. Dude,
How was
it
that?
was so cool. It was definitely. Uh, I think the one time. Remember when we all did the Starland Ballroom like 10 years ago?
Yeah, that was a
There was
fun
like
show.
800 people there or something. It was ruckus. It was crazy. Up to the point, I think that was the biggest crowd I ever been in front of. But this, I think there was over 1,000 people there, and without a doubt, it was the most people I ever performed in front of, and it was awesome. I got to open for Vic, and he was really nice, and I'd known Vic, but he was really cool, and the audience was awesome, and the only thing was, dude, my only my only thing that my only trepidation was the time, right? Because when you're doing clubs, you can have somebody give you a light, you can look at your watch when you got to work, and then you can wrap stuff up. Well, Dino told me I got to do 25 minutes, and now I went through like every bit I was gonna do. I'm doing the bit in my kitchen in front of my dog, timing each bit, and I'm like adding it all together, and I'm trying to figure out. And I'm like, I got this. I got it. It's 25 minutes. It should be right on the money. I'm about to go on. The girl brings me up. She's like, "Are you ready to go?" I'm like, "Yep." She goes, "You're gonna do 20." I'm like, it was 25. So now I'm freaked because I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna take out? And but it ended up
They got no
fine.
clock for you?
No, there's no clock.
What the fuck?
So
Nice theater should have a nice clock.
wouldn't you think that would count down? It would start at 20 and then it would just
or
count
count
straight
up
down?
however you want to count. Yeah, either way.
Yeah, no, there was nothing. So
But
it
the
was
clock
it was
does suck when it's bad and you're like, wow, only 15 seconds went by?
I can't believe
I
I still
just-
have another 18 minutes left.
I just did 35 minutes of comedy in 18 seconds. This is crazy. I'm a rambling mess.
Yeah, so it was really awesome. Even my wife was more nervous about it than I was. She was a wreck. She was nervous for me. She was
Yeah.
like, hopefully, you won't get. She knows about comedy. She's been watching this for so long, and she's like, "Oh, don't speed, don't talk too fast, and all that." But once I got up there, I felt okay, and it was so much fun, dude. It was just I could get used to that. I really, really.
Oh, you can get
could.
used to the 1,000-seat theaters full? Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. I
So
could get
odd.
used to it. Just say it.
Yeah.
Just say it. I could get used to that.
Yeah. Hey, I did a sold out 50-seater and I felt like I was on top of the world. I'm like, this is what I need. This is all I need.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's such a long. You don't realize how long you're doing it until like when you really think about a specific show. And this goes for anything in life. You sit there and when people say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that was 20 years ago. It went so fast." But when you really think about something you did 20 years ago and you really think about doing it, it was a long time. Like you've been doing comedy like 16 years now?
Yeah, like 04. It was.
Yeah.
It was
2004.
it was either 04 or 05. I can never remember because
I remember it was 04 when we were all at the Stress Factory all the time. And that's where we first
Yeah, it had
met.
to be. Yeah, it had to be. When did you do your radio show in 05? When did that start in 05?
July 25th. Sorry.
July 25th.
Yeah. I'm kind of a savant with dates.
Yes, I don't know if it could have been 05 because I made that film Something in 04, and I don't think I wasn't a stand-up yet. Maybe I started stand-up right after I made that.
I think so because I remember you showing us the movie, the commercial for Something.
Yeah.
And you know what? I remember because we were at the Stress Factory when the Yankees lost
Yes.
to Boston Red Sox. We were there when
Yeah, there was a
Boston came
contest
back.
going on.
Yes, when Boston came back from down 3-0, and that was 2004.
Yeah.
And I remember being there, and I'm pretty sure you were there.
Yeah. So it was 04.
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't even expect. I literally thought just going to the open mic was like the fucking best thing in the world. Like I had no ambition, like of being a comedian. I wasn't like, dude, I want to go here and start working on a craft so I can become a comedian. I was literally like, I got nothing to do on Wednesday. Like actually, Actually, in my attic. I have a bunch of tapes. Hopefully, they're not destroyed from heat up there. But I have a video of my first set at the Stress Factory up there.
You do.
And part of that video, because remember, I was more wanting to be a filmmaker back then. Part of that video, my friend Doug was using the camera. And my whole point was I'm going to try stand-up and make a documentary about me trying stand-up. So I'm pretty sure on that video is like an intro of me saying, this is my first open mic, da-da-da-da. And then,
Really?
Yeah, and I was just going to have like my buddy come and like just use my camera to help the documentary, but he can only sit through so many painful sets of mine where he's like, I don't really want to be a cameraman anymore. Right?
I know Doug. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That is weird.
I want to find that. Well, I figured if I put out an album in 2020, so this next act I'm working on that I'm building now, I have about 18 new minutes, 15 that's probably good, and and I'm building it. I want to do a special, and I always thought it'd be cool if I could find that video to like start it, just like first open mic, first time on camera doing it.
That would be awesome, like a great starting point for it.
What would be cool is take that set, right? Put it in the front, do my show, and say like at the end of my show, before I wrap up, like try and tell people this was my first set ever. And try and do those jokes now with
the jokes again.
How I am today.
Would you even like work on them and try them, or you would just watch it once and then try to do it?
I don't know. I don't know. It was just something I thought of that would be because I had no skills back then to even sell those jokes. I remember it not going too poorly, not too bad. It was like okay enough for me to want to try it again.
Well, that's what happened with me. I didn't bomb my first time. The second time I started bombing, and then I started making fun of the fact that I was bombing, and I was getting laughs. But and it was both at the Stress Factory. But yeah, and that's what I noticed is that you can go back and find. I actually found my old camera from like 2004, 2005 with those little DV things, like 15 of them. But I don't have a way to transfer them, and they want so much money to transfer them.
I'll give you a number. I brought some to this guy over in Booton. Did them really cheap.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But it's like the one thing I learned is that you might find like just like one nugget of like a great premise that you had, and now because you're that much better, you can make that into a good joke as long as it's not like a timely thing, like something that from 2004, you know. But yeah, so it's like that's why I want to look at some of those old videos just to see. Plus,
I like how you were just trying to fish for something from 2004, and your brain was like, I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I was like, what am I going to do?
I already said Red Sox. I'm out. I know there's a video of me bombing. Remember Rascals had a club in Jersey City, Rascals on the Hudson?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because I used to tape a lot of shows back then. I know I have a tape upstairs with me bombing to like it was a big room, and it was only like, I don't know, 4 people there watching. And during the bombing, you see them come by with like a dolly with a bunch of stacked chairs right in front of the stage. So I just I hit a punchline, nothing, and you hear like, you just see the silhouette of a guy just wheeling chairs right across my face. I'm like, this is entertainment, people.
Awesome. That was the one that was right on the corner, right? It was right on, I forget, but it was like a weird setup, right? It was
nice. It was just gigantic, so. I remember it being like...
Maybe I'm thinking of another thing, but I remember I thought I was at that where it was like a bar, and then next door was a big room, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I was there. It was like a mic, and then afterwards they did slam poetry.
Oh, yes.
And I went up and did this thing. I did a poem. Because I wrote... And we did it on the Conte and Kenny years ago, where I found... all this writings about some girl that like kind of crushed my soul, and I wrote all this stuff, and it was just riddled with low self-esteem and self-hatred, and I had it in my bag, so I went up on Slam Poetry and read it, and it was so friggin' embarrassing because I think they were all like kind of like cool, and they were like, they would do poetry, like, I don't know, building, and bringing it down, crushing, falling, jumping, whatever. And I'm just sitting there talking about a girl who just destroyed me, and it was just bad. It was bad. But yeah, I remember that. That was really embarrassing.
I did one time because I used to perform at some poetry nights to do comedy, and I one time made fun of poets. Like I made a poem called a comic writes a poem. If you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Joe Fernandes, go in the search bar, put in Joe Fernandes comic writes a poem. It's there. Somebody recorded the audio that night, and
oh really?
I just took all these idiosyncrasies that I noticed that poets used, all these different things, and I put them together in a poem, and it crushed.
Did it really?
Dude, it got big laughs, and it was a room full of poets. I was basically shitting on them.
But did they know you were shitting on them?
Oh yeah, because they knew I was a comedian, and I said, "Here, you know what? Let me real quick. I think I could probably get it onto the podcast.
That would be great.
I have the copyright.
I would hope so.
Hey, yeah, I get flagged for my other thing. I'm Joe. Sure you are. Like I am. Let me see if I can get this up. Come on. I love computers. It's like when you want something fast, you just get nothing.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, comic writes a poem. Okay, hold up. I'll have to... Good thing about my YouTube channel, you don't have to worry about ads popping up.
You don't.
Let me try and go to the web page so we can hear it. Why does it not show Joe on there? Hold on a second. Hold up. What happened to Joe? Joe's gone. I don't know what happened.
Do you hear me?
I hear you, but your picture is gone for some odd reason.
I'm underneath you on my screen.
Okay. Let me switch back to... All right, I'm going to go full screen with just the YouTube so we can play this. Let me make sure the volume's up.
Hey, how's it going?
I did an intro.
I wanted to preview this audio clip that I'm posting for you. It's something I found that I forgot that I had.
All right, I'm going to get past this.
Let me know your thoughts.
Here we go.
Your thoughts. Thank you.
Hear it? Yeah! Okay. Florida. You guys, I learned a lot watching you guys. I never wrote a poem before, so I learned a lot watching people. So, cool. It's called, A Comic Writes a Poem. I listen to the poets here at LNS, and I must attest, they do impress. But nevertheless, I feel possessed to write my own poetic mess. From what I've learned from those of you with success. As I pop my peas to my people, I pontificate. I defecate my words on the poo-poo plate of your mind. This ain't funny, honey. Not like no Easter bunny when it's sunny. You think my rhyming skills can show me some easy money? I need another word to finish my blurb. Something superb to add to this poetic piece of turd. As luck would have it, my mind just grabbed it. I'm feeling elation with my creation. As my gyration causes my mutation. And my causation for my dehydration. Cause I'm a goofy word assassin. So you better fasten, cause I'm keeping it real. So don't slip on my banana peel. Cause I got universal appeal like an Alaskan fur seal. Sitting shotgun on a Ferris wheel.
Oh, get back to the... It's not switching back. That wasn't bad.
Dude, I loved it. And I loved your absolutely offensive black fucking vernacular. It's awesome.
Well, because there was always a lot of black slam poets.
Right, yeah, because they're kind of skewing between rapping and doing poetry.
Well, they're almost like what are they like? The church guy, like a pastor almost.
Like a pastor, right? Yeah,
yeah.
Dude, I loved it because it was a combination of, like banana peel and with being a comic and then doing poetry. I thought it was great.
Yeah, because it was like a. They were doing it was like an anniversary night. It was like
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Male person just came to the door.
Oh, you're a male person? All right. Bring the dog in front of the camera. That's a corgi in the background named Gleason. That's Kirby's friend. Is Joe reading the mail? I don't even know what he's doing. All right, we'll go single shot. All right, while I have you here, while waiting for Joe to come back, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the audio of this podcast at any audio podcasting app that you happen to be using. And please rate it. Go to iTunes and rate it. For some reason, that helps it. So leave a comment. Give it 5 stars. And I think Joe may be coming back. I hear large footsteps.
That's me. I'm sorry.
There he is. He's back. I just took a moment to tell people to subscribe and comment and rate.
Oh, okay.
I remember writing that poem because it was like a anniversary of that show. You've done it with me. It was like Mercer County College had that open mic on like late Friday nights. And like, oh, it's the anniversary show. Will you perform on our anniversary show? I was like, of course. So I was like, I want to come with something totally fucking different. I was like, I'm going to use my time
not that on that show also.
Instead of doing stand-up. They thought I was going to do stand-up. Oh. They brought me up as a stand-up, and I just said, hey, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I've been watching you guys, and I've been learning. So I wrote my own poem, and there was one person, if you hear that, I go, I wrote a poem, and one girl goes, oh, God. It was so funny.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you did that in Jersey City, but...
No. That was one of the, because I used to be like one of 2 comedians at that open mic.
Oh, okay.
Any night. It was mostly like, musicians and poets and, slam poets. Like you'll start hearing, it's, I guess, kind of like comedy too. Like you'll hear one, like the first one you hear, you're like, yeah, that motherfucker, that was awesome. Then you see another one come up and you're like, this is the same shit as comedy. It's like fucking, they have their own hack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing the same thing.
Yeah, the one that that shouldn't be doing it, all that. You're right.
Right, but they all have for like when Tinder came out, everyone like you'd have 10 guys on the lineup doing Tinder jokes. Same thing with poetry. It's like they'll have like these same cadences. Like there's no originality.
Right.
I mean, little originality. But what are you gonna do? We're all open micers.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're on the poetry circuit killing it today.
Yes. Yeah, when they're doing podcasts about doing poetry.
Yeah, podcasts about poetry. So your Conte and Kenny podcast, that's done?
It's when Kenny got his back surgery last January. We kind of just halted it. We halted it for a while, and when he wants to come back and do it, even if we just do it on occasion and just go up to the studio, me and Joey, we're both in. So pretty much we haven't done one in almost a year, and if we do one once in a while, that's great. If not, it's no big deal. Or maybe we'll just do Zoom or something and do it from the computer. Just do like an episode on occasion. But you know what? I'm having so much fun doing the Honeymooners thing, and we actually got a guy named Scott Tepperman who was on that show Ghost Hunters International.
Uh huh.
If you ever heard of it, I don't watch those shows, but yeah, he's like he loves the show. They send us a guy who used to be on Channel 9 News or Channel 11 News, He's like a retired. He loves the podcast. It's like we get like kind of almost like pseudo celebrities. This rapper named Scribble. He's big in L.A. He's a hip hop artist. He loves the show. It's like, oh my God, people are actually listening to this. You
With
know,
a name like Scribble, you better be a hip hop artist.
yeah. I guess he's not really.
Hey, my
good
name's Scribble. What are you, a history professor? I love your podcast,
Yes.
Professor
Yes,
Scribble.
I draw for a living.
Where can people find a Honeymooners podcast?
You pretty much anywhere you get your podcast, or if you go to non-productive.com/honeymooners. And dude, we're up to like 83 episodes. It's so much fun. And now we do a thing called Full Grown Nut of the Week. We nominate one of our listeners and we give them a little certificate, Full Grown Nut of the Week, and we make a little fanfare about them. It's just we actually have fun doing it. Like you and Mike have fun doing your show.
Yeah.
We actually have fun doing it. And I think when you truly have fun doing a show, people like to listen. Because I think they've listened to enough crap where they just know they're doing it either just for the attention or just for if they're making money. But when people find a show where they can tell that the people really like doing it, like, it's like comedy. It's like we would do it for free, up to a point. But it's like it's something that you would do for nothing. And I think people are drawn to shows where people would do it even for nothing.
For sure, man. Your I love the Honeymooners podcast. When I was on it, I had the best time because it's just like a fun, like, I don't know. It was just fun. It was a fun podcast.
Dude, we were. That was only episode 13 when we had you on.
Oh.
We still didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were still trying to figure things out. And you were our only guest. You're the only guest we've ever had.
Look at that. Honeymooners podcast trivia. They'll say, who is the only guest? Someone go, Joe Fernandes. They'll be like, who?
Joe Fensterblau? No, not Joe Fensterblau.
But no, it's great. I'm glad you guys are having a good time with that. So since Conte and Kenny may not come back, I may have to start working on Joe to do the Cheers podcast with me. If it doesn't, we're gonna start. It'll be a limited run. We're just gonna watch all seasons.
Yeah, we'll just do all 10 seasons, right? And we'll just do 240 episodes.
That's
one
it.
for each, right?
That's what. That's a couple of years. We did it weekly. We'll do 2 episodes a week.
Okay.
And what? That'll take what? You're good at math. 2 episodes a week.
2 a week?
Yeah.
You're talking about 100 a year. So you're talking about, you're right, 2.5 years.
Well, not 2 episodes a week. I mean 2 episodes of Cheers per podcast. That'd probably be the best way to go.
Okay, so
or like 3. You know what I mean? Be like we'll do 1 through 3. Yeah, not one show per podcast. Fuck. I mean, it'd be over in 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. We could do a shortened version or something. I mean,
or like if like it has like a story. Say like some of them continue a storyline over a few.
Yeah.
Be like that'll be those. Bang bang boom. I don't know. Something to think about.
You could do one. You could just do a whole like each one. You could just do a cold open. I mean, they were one of the few shows that would just do a cold open, and to me, I love the cold opens. Whether it was just and either whether it had anything to do with the episode, it didn't matter. It was always just. I mean, they weren't always home runs, but just, dude. I mean, when I think about like my favorite characters on that show, I don't know because, I mean, Carla had some of the greatest lines ever given to an actress. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
She just killed it.
Well, that was the thing. They spread the funny around. There was no standout. Everyone was funny.
Everybody, yeah. I mean, they all had their own almost niche, and the characters were so because dude, to me, there's only a couple of shows, sitcoms that have a lot of main characters. That one's one, and Taxi's another, and they're both Burroughs and was it Les Charles?
Yeah.
But most of them, it's like 4 or 5 main characters. You rarely get 7 or 8 main characters.
Dude, I have a friend who is Cliff Clavin. My buddy Tony was a postal worker. The dude knew trivia like you would not believe. And he lived with his mother.
No way.
I swear to God, the only thing he wasn't was like a bar guy, like an alcoholic. But he was Cliff Clavin.
Wow,
It was insane. And that, I mean, obviously, I met Tony in mid '90s, so Cheers was like already gone.
Already gone, right?
But and I don't think he became a mailman until like after I knew him like 4 or 5 years. But I was like, when he became a mailman, I'm like, holy shit, you're Cliff Clavin now. Because before that, he was just a guy that knew a lot of shit that lived with his mom. And I'm like, I can't believe you like no one in their life ever set out to become Cliff Clavin.
No. Yeah.
Like if you're looking at that show, you'd be like, I wouldn't mind being a norm if I had to be an alcoholic.
Yeah, I get to eat what I want, put on a bunch of weight.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to be Sam Malone, ladies, man?
Correct.
I wouldn't mind being Woody, just being oblivious.
Yeah. And I mean, we forget Frasier Crane. You know, I mean,
is that like the only successful spinoff of a show?
No, I mean, All in the Family had like 3 successful spinoffs.
Oh yeah.
So, Maude, the Jeffersons.
Oh, okay.
And I forgot. It might have been one more, but they had.
Yeah,
like,
but I'm talking. Were they like? But like the Jeffersons weren't like Frasier was like a character on Cheers. Yeah. Like were those other ones like main people?
No, not main. Like
they were like secondary characters. So you didn't really like. We knew Frasier's story,
right?
Kind of before Frasier.
Yeah, but the Jeffersons were. They weren't maybe main characters on All in the Family, but you knew the Jeffersons, and then they moved, and then they did the show. So it was like direct spin-off. Okay. And then you had Good Times, which was a spin-off of Maude, because it was I guess the girl Florida was the maid on Maude.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the direct and just being as successful or maybe more successful. Frasier might have been more successful than Cheers.
They're talking about bringing it back, I heard.
Really?
I read that a while ago. I don't know if like maybe the pandemic shut all that down, but they were talking about bringing Frasier back.
You know what? An interesting thing. My mother, God rest her soul, was an absolute kook, but my mother said 2 prophetic things in her life. I was living with her at the time when Susan Smith, remember when Susan Smith drove her 2 kids, that terrible story?
Yeah.
Yeah, and drove her and said it was a carjacking. And I remember because I was living with my mom at the time, and it was the first time the news was on and they showed her crying, you know, because they were saying, we just want our babies. And I remember my mother just went, that girl right there, she killed the kids. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then we found out like 3 months later that she was the one that killed him. Mm-hmm. And we were watching Cheers one day and Frasier was on. And my mother went, he over there, he could have his own TV show. And he ended up having Frasier and it being a successful show.
I want to hear what your mom said at your first show. I bet I can tell. My Joseph, he ain't gonna do a shit with this.
Yeah, Joseph, maybe in about 7-8 years, you're gonna try a stand-up comedy. Don't even bother. Just go to this all for your mother, all right? Yeah. You lazy son of a bitch.
I love your jokes. I love you when you do your mom on stage and your dad with the accent. It kills me.
Yeah, but, it's the most Italian thing I do on stage,
and it's awesome. But I got to wrap this up because I'm going to go see Colin Quinn's one-man show.
Where you going with James?
Yeah. That's Colin Quinn. It's called like Last Best Hope or whatever. So I'm glad you helped me do this while Gaffney's on the road. We're proud of our boy here because his dream of like doing cruise ships is like really coming. He's like hopping from ship to ship to ship, killing it out there in the high seas. But we miss him on the podcast, so hopefully he comes back on Sunday. And I was like, dude, you've been out to sea so long. You better be like commanding the whole podcast next time. You better have enough stories. But I go, hey, how's it going, Mike? Boom. Then you don't hear from me until the end. And good night, everybody.
I'm sure Gaffney's going to have a couple of stories.
Hell yeah, dude. But once again, go check out Joe Conte's podcast, the Honeymooners Podcast. And go see Joe performing. He's always at Uncle Vinny's Comedy Club like me.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. And if you want, you can find my my original comedy album. You could just, I think you can listen to it for free now. It's all over. It's on like Amazon. I think it's free. It's called Happiness.
Yeah, I made that.
Joe was the one that did that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you don't think it's good, you can blame Fernandes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm making John Moses' new CD in December. I'm recording it for him at Uncle Vinny's.
Cool.
I think you're with me at Uncle Vinny's the end of December, are you or not?
Yeah,
there we go.
Right.
If you want to see me and Joe Conte together, last weekend of December, Wednesday, Thursday, right before New Year's.
Yeah,
it's the Wednesday, Thursday.
And then we're working together on New Year's.
On New Year's, working 3 days straight. You can go see his Uncle Vinny's either Wednesday or Thursday or New Year's Eve. 2 shows at the Newtown Theater. An early show in case you're someone who doesn't like to be out on New Year's. And it's like the theater is like not far at all, even from Jersey. And they have this great strip of restaurants you can go eat and have a good time. So go to JJ.
Little town, Newtown, Pennsylvania. It's
go to Google Comedy Shop or jjcomedy.com or Newtown Theater, Pennsylvania, and get those tickets. But thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. You've been listening to All in Our Heads.
All in Our Heads.